Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interviewed titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today wants to help our next generation of leaders fulfill their dreams. She is a transformational coach, has a PhD, and is the CEO of STEERus, the home of the world's first soft skill learning center. Please welcome Dr. Loralyn Mears. Welcome.
Hi, Michael. Thanks so much for having me and just being an absolutely gracious host and accommodating all of the, the funky stuff and trying to get set up. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to have you on the show. I was watching your video on your website about why you started STEERus, and I really liked the fact that your kids are an inspiration to you in starting it, and of course all of the technology that we're dealing with in the world today, and being able to break us free from that to be able to communicate. I graduated a communication degree, and so I think communication is very important. Sometimes a skill that's overlooked, and so I know that that's definitely important to you. What I'd love to just jump into before we even get into STEERus and what drove you to start STEERus, unless you want to start right there, that's fine, is maybe some things about your childhood that led you to where you are today and turning into a transformational coach that you are.
Well, as a child, I guess we'll start there, right? Like, let's roll it all the way back, and then we'll jump to,
sure.
current times. Net, as a child, I was always curious, trying to figure out, why bugs did this or that, and I grew up in Northern Ontario, Canada, so there's a lot of wildlife up there, and, the big question of the day was always, how do you outrun a bear or a charging moose, that's being attacked by black flies? Those were the big questions of the day that I was curious about, but more than that, I really enjoyed English as a subject. That was just my favorite thing. I loved writing essays. I started writing books. As a child, I was 7 or 8 years old and said, I can't wait to be a published author one day, and I'm going to go out and be a journalist. And this love of public speaking and writing stories continued throughout high school until my hopes were dashed when it came time to apply for universities. Yep. My parents said, no, English is not a real degree. You are not going to be a journalist. You need to be, do a career that everybody can be proud of and one that can sustain you. So I said, what does that mean? So I did 11 years of university to get a Bachelor of Science Honors, Master of Science in Physiology, and PhD in Molecular Biology. Came out at the end of it and went, wow, I really don't like being at the bench. I want to be a journalist.
Oh my goodness, you went through a lot of schooling. It's interesting that you just mentioned all of that, all of those different degrees. I just was at a family party, and my younger cousin, she's 21, and she's always, since she was a little girl, has said that she wants to be a marine biologist, and she's now studying at the University of Miami, and not to be confused with the one in Ohio, just in case. She's down in Miami. I just learned about that. And we were having a very similar conversation over the weekend where she was just saying, I love everything about what I'm trying to study, but I don't like the lab portion of it. So it's interesting on how, like, sometimes you get into something that you really love, but it might not be exactly where you're headed. I'm interested in going back to your parents and some of the decisions that you made. First off, what really intrigues me, because I study public speaking, and it's something that I'm, also very close to in my life, and I'm very passionate about. What drew you to public speaking? What was your whole reason that you enjoyed public speaking? Was it just language and how you said that you liked studying English?
Actually, no, it was my grade 4 teacher. I mean, she's long, deceased now. When she was my grade 4 teacher, I thought she was, old as dirt at the time. So you can imagine this woman was equivalent age of my grandmother at the time. And I was a really shy, super nerdy kid. Like, not a cool nerd. Like, I became a cool nerd later. But for a lot of years, I got beaten up because I was just a nerd. And in grade 4, and again, this is, Canadian school, and she took me aside and she said, Loralyn, I love your stories. I want you to enter public speaking contest. And I was like, no, this kind of thing. Like, I'm really shy. I don't want to do it. And she made me go to the front of the class. She pulled my back up and said, posture, project yourself. And then she pushed her hand into my stomach. She's like, I want to hear you. Say it like you mean it. And I was like, she's like, say it. And I was like, and then I discovered my voice. And when I stood up in front of the class, I don't know, I just had that sort of certain tonality to my voice and an ability to project it that she taught me, that people just stopped and listened. And I thought, wow, that's a great feeling. I love being in front of a crowd and entertaining them and educating them. And that also put me on the path where I thought, like, oh, I'd like to be a professor, because that's a combination of education and entertainment, public speaking, journalism. You've got to inquire, find out stuff, do research. Like, that would have been the perfect career. But no, I went down to Silicon Valley and joined the dot-com boom. So,
well,
big change.
We certainly are going to talk about you going to Silicon Valley. So that's interesting. So you were inspired by your fourth grade teacher to become a public speaker. And then as you went along, so now there is a profession of course, public speaking. There's a profession in the world of language and English. But your parents, you said, didn't think that was the profession that you should be going into. And I think that this can be related to our entrepreneurs and even our business leaders who are looking to go into an executive level at different positions or different companies, is that there's always going to be people that are trying to protect you and keep you safe. And I think that maybe that's what your parents were trying to do. Do you think that you would have realized, looking back at it, do you think that if you would have realized that they were just trying to protect you and knowing that you have self-confidence now, do you think that you would have made some different decisions? And if so, what would they have been?
Absolutely. So there's first of all, no animosity with my parents. I love my parents. I'd like to see them. It's been, 20 months since I have, because the damn Canadian border's been closed for so freaking long with this awful pandemic. But it sounds like they're maybe opening it up. So no animosity there. Great relationship, all that sort of good stuff, very supportive. And they realized, like, late in life when I did officially become a journalist, that, like, wow, you should have done that and read my books. They're like, Loralyn, you missed your calling. I'm like, not really. You kind of distracted me from it, but we're not going to go there. What would have changed, and this is, I think, totally relevant to young folks today and entrepreneurs, and it's the kind of reason, part of it really, why I formed STEERus, is that if I had access to coaching, to behavioral assessments, to ways to be able to learn to go back and talk to my parents or to dabble in different things. I mean, again, there was no internet. I couldn't go on YouTube back then and go, what's it like to be a journalist? What's it like to be an author? What's it like to be a TED Talk speaker, right? I mean, that didn't exist. And if I had had those opportunities to really indulge those passions of mine and that curiosity I had to figure out what could be if, I would have known that I really don't want to be a slave at the bench. I don't want to be in the lab coat and being exposed to radioactivity, year after year, which I think ultimately was to my detriment. I'm a cancer survivor as well, and I think that was all accelerated by exposure to heinous chemicals and radioactivity day in, day out. And it would have been great to have, like I said, the tools to be able to, and the confidence to be able to go to my parents and go, I get it. Like you are protecting me. You want what's best for me, but I want what's best for me, and I don't think this is it. And I'm old enough, and I need to carve my own path. I've won scholarships, so it's not a huge financial burden on you. It's on me. Like, let me experiment. And I think today so many parents, and really things changed at the turn of the last century, they're afraid to let their kids fail. So they're just these helicopters, right, that are there, and they're all over the place, and they're saying, no, don't do that. No. Wait, here's your trophy. I know you wanted to try out last week, honey bunny, but you didn't have time. That's okay. I'm going to give you a trophy because you thought about it, right? And we're doing our kids a disservice. They need to fall off the playground, like just, a foot up, like not 10 feet off the monkey bars, like just a foot at a time. They need to scrape their knees. They need to eat dirt. They need to not get picked, for the softball team at recess. All of this stuff needs to happen because we need to process what is loss, what is popularity, what are we passionate about, and build our confidence and our resilience. And that's where a lot of this coaching is coming in. So anyway, on a tangent there, but I wish I'd had that.
Yeah, I love that because it does bring us to STEERus, which is the coaching program that you created, and I certainly want to get into that, and I want to learn more about what soft skill learning really means. I would like to emphasize some of what you just said there, because our entrepreneurs and business leaders that are listening, I believe, and you could certainly elaborate on this, and from what you just said there, is that had you have had the information, had you have had the resources and the tools schools, you may have been able to go to your parents. And so let's just change our parents to our investors, to our bosses, to our spouses, to anybody that today, while we're in the business community, might be trying to protect us. If we have the resources, the tools, the information to be able to share with them and say, here's everything that I'm looking to do, here's how I'm looking to do it, then they're more than likely going to be supportive. But one of the biggest keys in all of that you mentioned, and I mentioned earlier too, is having the confidence. And by having all of that, you create that confidence. Would you agree with all that? I mean, you just said it too.
Yes, absolutely. It's that combination, right? Confidence, grit, resilience. These are the things that make an entrepreneur. You may not have the best idea in the world, but boy, oh boy, if you believe in it and you've got some of that confidence and bravado and you can influence and convince other people to believe it, they just might. Right?
Yeah. Something else that you mentioned there was processing loss. And I think that that's really important too, is that our failures are what make us stronger. Our failures are part of our growth. I've brought this up before on my show with Sergey Brin, talking about Google and how he likes to share all of his goals with his employees, or back when he was CEO, with his employees, so that when he fails, they can see those failures, but knowing that those failures are what brings them closer to their ultimate goals and how important those are. When you speak about processing loss, and I'm sure you speak about it with your mentees and your coaching staff and everyone, can you just elaborate on that theory as well a little bit, please?
Yes, it's just, I don't believe in here's a trophy, thanks for coming out. You lost. Did you play hard? Did you learn about yourself? Did you learn some things about working together as a team? Did you learn some things that can maybe inform and fuel, future competitions? Great. Then it's not a loss. You've processed the loss. But if you sit there and you sulk and this and that and you don't really take those lessons, what are you going to do with them? And here's a tidbit, Michael. I mean, it's not a scientific study, but, there we go. On my Like a Boss podcast, I've had about 80 guests, and I always ask the question, if I say, I'm going to give you some pixie dust or some magic beans or a magic wand or something silly, and I say, you got to go back in time and you change one thing. What do you change? And I don't have the number offhand, but of the 80, I would say 60 of them said, I wouldn't change a thing. Why? Because every single thing I went through shaped me to become the person that I am. And I had to experience those hardships, those losses, because they gave me the hunger to want to do what I'm doing now, because the thing that I'm doing now, which is largely entrepreneurship, that's what also my show focuses on, is if I didn't have all of that buildup in my tank of grit and resilience and knowing that I'm going to fall and fall often and I'm going to have to scrape myself off the floor, I wouldn't be able to take the path of an entrepreneur. So they say, no, I wouldn't change anything.
Yes, and it's so agreed with. Now, I don't have yet as many guests on my show, but I do ask them a very but I do have a very similar question that I ask about changing something in the past, and same response is that they all say they wouldn't change anything. And I think that's the true mind of a leader, of like you said, confidence, of all these things is by looking at our failures and going, I learn from it. And actually, I've had some people on the show say the same thing, is that they don't look at them as failures, but as learning experiences and what they've learned from these losses, like you said. So you brought up Silicon Valley, which is such a hot topic these days, and the .com boost. So I would like to do a little time travel there real quick with you, and just hear about that experience, what you did there, and what you learned from it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was there at a fabulous time. I mean, I rode the wave .com to .bomb, right? And so, there on Highway 101, I did it when it was like a 5-hour commute, to go 45 minutes, or whatever, 20 miles kind of thing. It should take 45 minutes, and it would take 5 hours. But then I also, on the other side, where are the cars? Where are the people? Has everybody left Silicon Valley? So I saw both sides. And what a place to have cut my teeth, like really, really, really. So there at the turn of the century, so now we all know how old I am. There you go. Hi, listeners. I'm not young. And
you certainly, first of all, I have to cut you off here. You certainly look very young, and you're very beautiful. I get to see you here on my Zoom, and and I would say, and I think you can attest to it, is that it's the number means nothing. It really is that we carry ourselves and our ambitions and what we do in our lives.
Absolutely. And every wrinkle, scar, everything I have, it tells a story. And I'm a character. I have got lots of stories.
Well, your lighting's great, so you're good.
So, yeah, it's all good. So, anyway, 2000, I'm in Silicon Valley, right? I'm all like, yeah, I'm starting my career, like, bring it on. And I joined Sun Microsystems, which, that may or may not be a name familiar to your audience, but, they were the .com. They created Java, Solaris. Like, they made the Internet possible, like a safe place. And I was with luminaries like Scott McNeely, Bill Joy, all of these amazing folks who were doing things completely differently. They started RFID tags, all of this stuff. The first like personal little FinTop like computer where you could take your badge it in, and then whatever instances were on my my computer at the time, then I'd go to the office in France, I'd go to the office in Germany, and and it would all come back up exactly how I left it, like all the tabs, all the stuff. Like, it was brilliant. People didn't need offices. They believed in, remote work. We all had little lockers with the wheel away that had our laptops in it, and you just parked your little wheel away carry-on bag as a locker into the facility, hot desking, all this stuff. This was 2000. So a company way ahead of the time. It was just absolutely incredible to have access. And Sun Microsystems was set up to be non-hierarchical. So what that meant was they didn't have a structured like org chart the way that you normally do. You were part of different departments. And I was brought on with the task, Loralyn, is there a there in life sciences? Should we make it a vertical market? And so Sun became the first IT global company to have life sciences as a vertical market, which I created and ran and ultimately drove to about just over $500 million in annual sales. And talk about fun there where I had access. Because you didn't really have organization, you had to lead by influence. So I had to convince people to give up some of their software engineering cycles and other projects to work on my thing, or give up some of their marketing dollars that they had to promote my thing. And you're constantly, trying to steal pieces and parts of people. And eventually it was a global army of about 170-some folks. And, yeah, we set out to change the world, like light it on fire. Like, that was what Scott always said. Oh, my hair's on fire. Why is it burning? Give me something to burn about, and...
Well, you certainly did change the world, because without those RFID tags? RFID tags, and all the other different ways that you guys were doing things, we wouldn't be where we are today. There's a lot there that I kind of want to jump into. So it sounds like you had some great mentors in Bill and Scott, and I'd like to hear some of their teachings. Another little thing that you mentioned there was $1 billion in sales. Did I hear correctly?
No, just over $500 million.
$500 million. Okay.
Yeah.
Just over.
Didn't quite. Sun folded. Scott McNeely caved into Larry Ellison, right, who was his arch nemesis, and Oracle subsumed Sun Microsystems. But Sun, most brilliant people I have ever worked with my entire life. And even you go back to the reunions now, and everybody says the same thing. We've all worked for 50 other companies, and most people have gone on to the other like global big techs, and everybody still comes back and says, Sun, like, man, there was nothing like it. It was an incredible environment. So
let's stay there for 1 second, because that's why I bring up Bill and Scott there in that situation is what made it, what do you see it for yourself as what made it them brilliant or visionaries, or the experience that you just shared with us just now? What if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to cut my teeth, like you said, or if I'm an executive or trying to become an executive at a company, what are little signs or things that I can tell that are out there that I'm listening to that are telling me, you know what, this is the right idea, or this is the right leader to be following right now? What did you see in them that led you to believe that?
There were a number of things. One, accessibility. Like, I remember being at a hockey game with Scott. It was when the North Carolina, the Hurricanes, started their first hockey game, and we were there. He loved, he's a big hockey fan, and the Carolina Hurricanes had cheerleaders. And I looked at them and I'm like, oh, cheerleaders on the ice. This is so wrong. I'm a Canadian girl, right? So that's completely wrong. And I looked and like, maybe if they were on skates, it would make it more interesting if they fell. Then maybe I could get into it. But no, they had little carpets and running shoes. Anyway, it didn't work. But it was the accessibility that management made themselves accessible. And there was no such thing as a stupid idea, because only the good ideas would move forward anyway. If you couldn't convince someone to give up parts of their cycles or their day, your project wouldn't go anywhere. You had to tin cup to go get budget to do things. And it was instead of like sort of may the best man win, it was may the best idea win. And it was an environment where I worked with people from, the 5 corners of the globe. Everybody was pink, purple, orange, different background, this, that, sexuality, gender, this, that, like all over the thing. Like none of that mattered. There was so much respect for each other's intelligence and bringing ideas forward and a shared goal and wanting to change the world that none of it mattered. When I stepped outside of Sun and into some of the craziness, like I remember when Yahoo just got set up and going into the lobby and they had the cheetah wallpaper and the big lava lamps, and I was like, wow, this is Silicon Valley, this is so cool. But then it was all the nonsense after, right? I mean, this is pre-Me Too, but all that nonsense started. I mean, I'd go out, I was one of the few gals that was out there, and it was, not to say that I'm all that in a bag of potato chips, but I mean, the propositions were ridiculous. Like it was, these would be clients, these would be software partners, they're CEOs, and they're like, hey, after the conference, you're like, ugh. But I didn't have any of that nonsense inside Sun, and I worked with 40,000 people.
I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to speak a little bit about that experience, and we don't have to get emotional in any sense, but and what I mean is I don't want to make you uncomfortable in any way, but just to speak freely about some of this, because I'm sure there might be some female entrepreneurs or out there or business leaders that may have had some similar experiences. So I would like to, if you're open to it, to just ask some questions about that. So you're saying that at the time, and I'm sure this happens today too, because you still are a very attractive woman. So at the time there were propositions being made that you weren't looking for, and that made you uncomfortable. So I'm interested in what was that? What's that story like? And then how did you overcome that? Because I'm sure as a young person, you went home and you maybe felt disgusted or whatever it was, and whatever your feelings were. I don't know what they are. I'm making assumptions here, but I would like to hear from your side there. What was the feelings like? How did you overcome them? And what was the process then? And what are you happy to see now that's changed?
So yeah, there's a lot there to unpack. So thank you for creating a safe space in that here. And I'm an open book. I talk about things. Fortunately, nothing bad ever happened to me. I was not raped or anything like that. There were incidents where, thankfully, people stepped in and said, "All right, let's park this." And to the gals out there, I mean, you've got to be careful on every level. I mean, I remember one conference. I was sitting there, end of a long day, and I'm like, oh, okay, so, I went to have a drink at the bar. Yes, I had a drink. And there was a guy there sitting beside me. I'm like, oh, hey, how's the conference? Blah, blah. You're still wearing your badge, the whole thing, right? Oh, what talks you go to today? Whatever nonsense. And halfway through my drink, I started feeling really off, really, really bizarre and weird, just something was happening. And I looked at the bartender, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not okay. And he's like, okay. And then he noticed, I guess, that the guy came and followed me to my room. And by this point, I'm stumbling into the elevator. Not even half a drink, right? Stumbling. I collapsed in the hallway, and that guy was all over me. Thankfully, the bartender I had made contact, established a little bit of a rapport with, and I guess he called front desk security something, and they took him away. So you've got to watch it. You've got to, when you're on your own, and I traveled on my own extensively around the globe for my whole career, you have got to make these little allies. Just be known and stand up there and be noticed. Don't blend into the wall. And I'm not saying you've got to come in and do some big dramatic entrance. But you want to be noticed so that people see that you're there, and they're observing you, and they're making sure that you're going to be okay. If you go in and you sneak and you hide in a corner and, I just don't want anybody to see me, no one will. And neither will anyone notice if you're gone. So that's one tip there. Be really, really cautious about that. And secondly, all of the horrendous stuff, I've had numerous episodes in parking lots and things like that, even, at conferences, at whatever else, and you think, and you're walking back to your room and there's some other guy from the conference and they're like, hey, I've been stalked. I had to actually put restraining orders, on someone. He ended up losing his founder position in a company that he was part of. I finally got the confidence to go to HR. So you've got to know when to really stand your ground, and it takes time, it takes maturity, and it takes confidence. And you don't want to come off and say, hey, whatever, bleep, bleep, if you don't swear in the show here, but, back off, dude. You want to make it clear, and that all comes from a place of confidence. Case in point, it took me a long time to go through that. By 2010, I was working for Philip Morris, right? World's largest tobacco company at the time. It was a Fortune 10, and there was a big, the annual smokers convention. Of course, that's what you go to when you work for Philip Morris.
Goodness.
Oh, yeah, no.
Can't even imagine.
2010, Las Vegas. That's the only conference that is grandfathered from allowing smoking. They didn't have to ban smoking. So I go there, and I'm there to acquire companies. And I'm greeted by girls wearing pasties with tassels, and I'm like, take me to your leader, and I'm, looking up at the ceiling kind of thing, going, oh, I'm invited to all the after-hours parties and all of this sort of craziness. And they're like, oh, we've got a raw buffet tonight. I'm like, oh, I love sushi. Great. And we get there, and it's naked women that you eat the sushi off of. And I'm thinking, what the what, man? Like, I didn't sign up for this nonsense. Like, I am too old, not dealing with this. No. And so that's where, like, all of those learnings in the years come from, to come to play, and where I said, no, I feel uncomfortable with this. Here's what I'd like to do. There's a Starbucks down the road. Let's go meet there, and let's have a conversation, because I really don't want to do it here with the girls with the pasties and hanging in front of me. That's not making me comfortable. That's not conducive to good business. Let's go on my terms. And that's where and now, that's the rhythm that I'm in. If I'm uncomfortable, I say I am.
Yeah, and I like that you said that at the end there is let's do it on your terms, because I was going to ask you as part of that is what do you do? Because I mean that's definitely a difficult situation for I'm sure many, and it's what do I do? Do you? And also the other question I have here is when do you know is the right time to go to HR, like you said, and you mentioned earlier on you said I was never raped, but there's still situations that are just as traumatic, right? And so when does that female know to, and it doesn't have to be a female, it could be a male too, right? It's anybody, but I think that this is obviously occurs a lot more on the other side. When do they know to go seek help, or to be able to go to HR, or know that they're safe too to go to HR?
So yeah, a lot of stuff in there as well, and I always try to solve things on my own. Like I'm like, okay, pull up your big girl panties, like get on with it, right? Just be tough, be there. State your line. Remember all that like voice projection work, right? Like, right. Use it. Sound louder. It's like the equivalent of the male bird trying to ruffle up the feathers and like Look at me, right? I'm more attractive than that bird. It's that kind of thing. So stand my ground. For example, be at some conference, something, and maybe it's a manager, maybe it's somebody else, executives even, and I said, come up to my room for a drink. And you're like, not cool. Like, why don't we have a drink down here? Let's have a conversation, like whatever. And this is where I want to be clear too, whether it's guys, gals, it doesn't matter. You can't send mixed messages. If you're going to sit there and be cute and coy and winky and all that, you're sending mixed messages. Go into business mode, right? That's what I did. Boom. Oh, would you like to have a drink? Oh, yes, there's that project. We still have to discuss that, right? Maybe this would be a good opportunity. Why don't we do that? It's late. I'm not going to have an alcoholic beverage. I'm going to have a little bit of bubbly soda. You still want to meet? And like, boom. It's like you flip the switch.
I'm glad that you cleared that air, because I started getting a little scared here, because I was like, I've had some drinks at the bar, but I am glad that you cleared that air, because I think that that's very important to know, and it's not blaming any side, but you're making a very clear distinction as to we're just having fun and we're partying together, or we're having a business conversation, and I think that is very important to make clear.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, intention. There's intent. You have to be intentional. And everything that you do has consequences. If you're sitting there and slurred speech and 10 drinks after another, well, you could put yourself at risk, right? Like, you really can. I do like a one and done rule when I'm with an executive or conference or have a drink. Hey, I'm all for it, right? No judgment, but I do my one and done. Great, thanks, thanks for the night. And that's not to say I don't have fun and laugh. I mean, of course I can do all of that, but I don't flirt. There's a difference. You can be fun and have fun, but don't be flirtatious and send mixed signals. So the person on the receiving end thinks, oh, okay, maybe she is into me. You don't want to do that.
Right. And I think that there are a lot of people that consider themselves flirtatious. I know I've been called very flirtatious at times, but it's understanding to not send mixed signals, or if you are sending a signal and seeing a reaction that you don't want to engage in, then realize what you're doing and maybe pull back and draw that line again, like you said. I appreciate you digging into that, because I think that that's very important. And I'm sure there's a lot more we can talk about there, and I'm certainly open to it if it does come up. But I will slide us out of this one here. I think you shared enough there for us, and any of our audience that is listening. If they ever have any questions or need any help about this, Loralyn's information will be in the show notes, and we'll also share at the end of the show. And you can certainly contact her, and I'm sure she'd be a great resource for you to lean on and ask any advice or help. All right, so you shared a lot there, and I think what I want to just talk about real quick with Bill Joy and Scott, where you mentioned some tips, the way we got into this, where we were just talking about some leadership tips of what they did that made you want to follow them, and one of them was accessibility, and that has come up a lot on my show. Is an open door policy as a manager, as a leader, is that you're able to speak with them, you're able to share ideas. And I really love that you said, not may the best person win, but may the best idea win. And that's where creativity stems from, is the ideas and being able to not just come up with an idea, but be able to execute on the idea. And that's what you just shared. So I appreciate that. Something else that you spoke about when you were at Sun, and I'm sure we'll go into a little bit further now, are some of your leadership abilities and leadership qualities. So you bashfully said just under $500 million in sales. But the other thing that you also said was that you had to go to different departments and ask them for their time, ask them for their resources, ask them for their people. And that is a huge leadership quality, to be able to go off and do that. And I'm interested in your mindset and in some of the strategy that you used in order to do that, in order to get these people to follow you into what you were doing.
So the couple of key tips right off the bat, I'll roll them off. One, be prepared, right? Be prepared for that meeting. Get your factoids, whatever else that you have to have ready, right, to make your pitch. You can't go in cold. You got to know what you're talking about. Number two, be proactive. Like, go out and chase. Like my dad always said, squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? And I used to get so mad, and I'm like, Dad, I'm so sick of that. And he's like, Loralyn, and like, anyway, truer words, never spoken. And the third thing that you want to do is you want to enter with respect. And so if you do get that opportunity, respect their time, use it wisely, don't wax on, get to your point, get it done, and respect that they may not be interested in your idea, right? It may not be as great as you think it is, and that's okay.
I like that. So we have preparation, proactive, and respect. And I think that those are three really great tips, is that it's always be prepared for what you're presenting, know what you're doing, have as much research and information at your fingertips, and be prepared to answer any questions, right? Be proactive, like your dad said, the squeaky wheel. Make sure that they know what you're doing, make sure that you're contacting all the right people, networking with all the right people, and then respect. I really like that. Is it's also kind of like, have no expectation, is go in, ask them for their time, and if you get it, great, and if you don't, that's okay. Go on to the next one, and maybe by them seeing what you're doing with the others, they'll be able to follow. I think that those are some really great tips. So then you went on, and this might have been around the same time, but in 2003 you founded, is it 13C or is it I3C? I3C. So you founded I3C. So tell us a little bit about the creation of that company and what led you to found this company.
Actually, it wasn't a company. It was an interoperable informatics international consortium, where, again, didn't understand the term social entrepreneurism then, and was able to leverage Sun Microsystems, Oracle, and all this. I brought the world's biggest IT companies together, and at the time, Compaq, HP, all these sorts of folks, Microsoft, Apple, at a time while they were suing each other in court, like billions of dollars were being exchanged in litigation. Brought them all to the table and said, we need to figure this out because everybody's doing different data formats, and because you all keep doing that, pharmaceutical companies can't make drugs because the data formats are incompatible. And we need to accelerate this healthcare thing because we've got issues. And what that taught me, again, you talk about confidence, you're young, you feel like, I could take on the world. I'm going to create an international standards organization. And I did. But
wow.
Here's the other piece of that I should have added to the fourth bit of advice from the, be proactive, show respect and be prepared. The fourth thing, stay humble. And this is an example a story I want to share with your audience. So on the day that I had finally first brought everybody together at the summit, the I3C summit, these were all executives, HP, IBM, Compaq, Microsoft, Apple, I mean, big folks. And brought everybody together, and I was all proud of myself. I was the only little chickie poo. I was young. I was I was in my little business suit, my heels. I'm I got the world, right? And all these guys are Everybody signed off on it. I'm yeah, man, I rock. And then I went to the parking garage, and this is in Connecticut, and because I had to get on my flight. And I'm in, my heels. I'm in my heels all freaking day, and my feet are just screaming at me. And I'm walking around, and it's one of those loop-de-loop that go up and up and up spiral. I don't know, 8, 9, 10 story, whatever, something ungodly. And this was before even the beep beep, of the cars, right? Again, I'm dating myself for people that don't know that. When you had rental cars, you just got a tag, and you never knew. And I was in a different rental car every couple of days in a different city. I got to the point where I had to start always renting white cars, so I knew what color my car was because I never knew what it was. So I'm in there, I'm walking around, my head's all high and blowing up. I'm all yeah, I'm so cool. And I'm I can't find my damn car. And then the little parking guy at the, down below that's in the little golf cart, and he comes over and he sees me walking in the nylons, carrying the shoes in my hand, with the blistered feet going, and he's honey, you can't find your car. And I was oh, this is going to kill me, but yes, I'm going to have to ask for help. And I'm no, I can't. And he's what color was it? And I'm I don't know. I'm I have the rental thing here. This is the license. And he's oh, you're one of those. I'm shut up, dude. I just pulled the world's IT leaders together. Give me some space. I missed my flight, everything else, and I left that saying, you know what? Never, ever, ever lose sight of being humble and the importance of staying humble, staying hungry. Hubris, it needs to go, right? It's knocked out many, many, many tech titans.
Yeah, the bringing them all together while they're battling at court, there were certainly, I'm sure, numerous challenges that you had to overcome. What was one of the biggest or one of the most memorable challenge that you encountered in doing that, and how did you overcome it? What was your strategy? What was the guidance that you received to be able to overcome it?
It wasn't so much even a received guidance. It was sort of try, fail, try again, kind of thing, you learn by error, which is a culture we've just got to create more of in our organizations today. I love that example of that, it was was it Netflix or whatever it was, that intern that just failed, and they said, it's okay, we're supporting him, we've got him, he's learning, he just, brought everybody down to its knees and exposed the whole email flap. Anyway, you've got to create these cultures of that. So back to your question, what I kept at it, try, learn, fail, and really got people to think about a purpose bigger than themselves. It's we're talking about drug discovery here. What if your wife, your daughter, your mother, your brother, your best friend has some incurable disease? Wouldn't it be awesome if you could say that you were part of the team that started creating standards to allow greater data interoperability to accelerate discovery? Isn't that a bigger and higher purpose than, you're an executive at some big company thinking about your next lawsuit? And, they have no answer for that, right? Of course, there's one answer.
Yeah, and that's another great thing that you bring up, and also I think is another one of your tips, right? Which is the idea that's bigger than myself. Is that it's not all about you. It's not all about your company. It's about the global world, everywhere that we live, and it's very, very important. So you describe yourself as an egalitarian. I was how am I going to say this word? So you describe yourself as an egalitarian, and that you worked with these Fortune 100s, and now you've founded your own EdTech company. And so I would love to dig into STEERus, because you're doing great work there. And as I said earlier on, is that I watched your video that you have on your website, which is a great video, and you talk about your kids, but you also just talk about where we are in society today. So what I like about it is that you're not just saying turn a blind eye to technology and everything. You're actually bringing it in and saying, hey, we need to communicate better, and we need to use technology to communicate better. And so I really love that. So I'd love to hear about STEERus, and if you could share in your own words the reason for founding it, and then what you're doing there and the work that you're doing with all of these individuals to be able, and also companies to be able to become better communicators and accomplish their dreams.
Sure. So it all started about 2 years ago at this time, South by Southwest, top 100 startups. All these founders were pitching their ideas. I think there was like one person over 40. Everybody else was pretty much under 25. And I was sitting in the audience going, damn, I'm old. And so that was like the first realization. I'm like, maybe I'm too old for a startup. But the panel of judges were all of like Jordan Weiss, all of these amazing, super famous people, collectively worth, gazillions of dollars, and they were trying to impart their wisdom and advice on these young founders. And the young founders were like, no, yeah, I got that. No, we did it right. No, that's not going to work. Yeah, no, thanks, we don't need that. Like, we've got the plan. And I'm sitting there going, who are you? Because I know who the judge is, and I know what their net worth is. Who are you? Like, maybe you should just listen for a minute. And I was stunned. Again, I talked about hubris has brought down many tech titans. The lack of humility and the arrogance. And I thought, geez. And then I also observed their inability to take feedback. And this is something, like I said, like where it came with, my own stepkids. Talk to the young little wee one. Oh, my goodness, you tell her room's not clean, and the crocodile tears start. And they're like, oh, my God, there's no drama here. Like, we don't need any drama llamas. Just clean your room. Like, it's really easy. Talk to the older one. Oh, my God, confrontational, ODD, oppositional defiance, the whole thing. Tell him one thing that he should change, or maybe should have done this, and said in a very careful way, because you don't want to escalate to an argument. Boom, flies off the handle, yelling, screaming, da-da-da-da, don't tell me what to do. I'm like, yes, me parent, you kid. You listen, me talk, right? I mean, and I started seeing this and talking to a lot of other people my age and, with their kids, and they're like, it's the same damn thing. You can't talk to them. They ghost each other. They call it dating if they send a few texts and Snapchats to each other. I mean, they have no limited skills with respect to interpersonal relationship development. And now in this era of COVID, oh my God, it's crippled. I mean, it was already, handicapped, and now it's all but paralyzed. It's horrible to see. And that's really the basis for STEERus. And there's another piece to that, Michael, if I can just add.
Yes, please.
The whole thing, the overlooked, right, and the underserved, there's a big swath of the community that's like the most of the world, right? We all kind of tend to focus on, the entrepreneurs and this and that and the big tech, where all that life is really overly glamorized. But there's the bulk of society that gets it done, right? Everything. We saw that in COVID, from the frontline workers, the essential workers, all of that stuff. That's the chunk of society. And those are the folks that in general have not benefited from technology. It's really only 10-12% of our society that's benefiting. And so I'm really turning things on their head by saying, let's use technology to give that 80-90% benefit with upskilling, workforce development, reskilling on something that they're not teaching in schools, which are soft skills.
Right. So that brings us to our soft skills. So I have a couple questions for you. One of them, and this has to do with just being able to, when we're talking to our audience here and they're listening, our audience of entrepreneurs and business leaders I want to just make sure that they're aware that you're never too young. So I've had a founder on here. He started at 16 years old as an entrepreneur. Incredible. And then you're also never too old. So that's why I asked this question is, how old were you that you felt that you were the oldest in the room at the time when you founded the company?
50.
You're 50 years old. So
I was like, oh my God, I'm old as dirt. I was thinking back to, again, my grade 4 teacher teaching how to project your voice. And I thought she was old. Damn, I mean, at the time she was probably 60. But I mean, 50 is not far from 60. And so I started looking at that and going, can I do the slog? Because the hours are long, and it's brutal, and it's lonely, and it's really, really freaking hard. And like I said, it has been overly glamorized. There's a reason why 92% of startups don't see their first year anniversary, right? It's extremely difficult. And I thought, wow, damn, I'm too old. But then you start to look around, and you can find people like yourself who have been through enough things that, like, yeah, I didn't like that. That happened at that company. That was this. That was that. Like, for example, when I was at Philip Morris, it was very hierarchical, the complete opposite of what I'd experienced at Sun, where, you know, I got written up in an HR letter because I didn't go to my manager. I ended up talking to my manager's manager in an elevator conversation, like randomly. And my manager found out, and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me that you had a conversation, you know, with my manager?" I'm like, I didn't think it was relevant. Like, we rode the elevator together, and, you know, I started talking about what he was working on, like no biggie, right? But apparently it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And so I founded STEERus, 3 simple values: transparency, respect, integrity. That's it. You don't need definitions. Everybody knows what those words mean. Do it.
Transparency, respect, and
integrity.
Integrity. Yeah, those are very, very important. So I love that. So you founded this at 50 years old, and I think that that's really important so that people know that there really is no timeline. I mean, and we look at KFC, Colonel Sanders. He started at 65 years old. He founded KFC. I think that's overlooked. Like, we wonder why is this old man pitching Kentucky Fried Chicken, and it's because that's how old he was. He was 65 years old, and so there's you're never too young and you're never too old. I really love that. I just want to talk about real quick. You mentioned the non-glamorous part about entrepreneurship and how hard it is, and I'm just interested in what maybe your day looks like, or what it feels like, a day in the life of an entrepreneur. Depends
on the day, but well, you know,
let's go with your most productive day, not your most challenging. Just what most of your productive days look like.
Well, my days, this is what it typically looks like. So, you know, up at 5:30 with the dog, quick walk, this, that, 6:15 at my desk, you know, breaks in between, you know, potty the dog, all that kind of thing. She's a little pupster, she's in training. My other dog that I unfortunately had to put down, she was just a good sleeper. She just laid by my feet and let me work. And, you know, 8 to 10 hours of Zoom calls a day, and then you got to try to work in between. Then I've got to make dinner for the family, and I made this, you know, joke, and my husband's still ticked with me over it, but it was at a venture capital summit, and I was part of a panel of all women, and they're like, you know, why is it so hard to be a female entrepreneur or a female investor? What's going on? And I jumped in, and I said, because men don't ever get asked as male entrepreneurs, hey, honey, what's for dinner? And it's like, hey, I'm trying to save the world here. Like, and you're asking me what's for dinner? Like, go figure it out. You're 19. Go in the fridge. Go in the pantry. Make something. Grab a snack. You know, and they look around like the same thing, like in the middle of that panel discussion. How long are you going to be? Like, and I'm like, panel discussion, Zoom, can't make dinner right now, occupied, right? So my day is typically then around 6:30 p.m., you know, make dinner, whatever, feed the family, clean up, blah, blah, all that. 8 o'clock, you know, I'm back at it till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Saturdays and Sundays, I, you know, ended a little earlier. And that's it.
Right. Yeah. Shelley Archambault, she has a book. I'll find the name of the book for everyone. But she speaks about that, about the reason why female entrepreneurs or business leaders get asked those questions of what's for dinner. And I thought I was above that. Not, you know, I thought that, I made dinner for our family very regularly, but more recently I haven't been. And my wife typically makes dinner now, but she used to ask me, and she doesn't anymore. And so it was interesting when I was reading this book, which I'm trying to find the name as quickly as possible for everybody. It's called Unapologetically Ambitious by Shelley Archambault. And what she spoke about in the book, about what you just brought up there, about asking what's for dinner or the laundry or whatever it is, right, is it just has to do with the way that our society was back in the day, right, when women were at home and men worked, is that it was the woman, quote unquote, the woman's job to do the laundry, get the food on the table and everything. And that it never changed when the woman went to work. It didn't change, and it hasn't changed yet. It's maybe shifting a little bit, but it hasn't changed, where we still expect those things from our female entrepreneurs to do all those things. And so it's a big challenge, I think. I don't have the answer for it. She didn't have the answer for it in her book, but she did bring up the fact that that's part of the reason that makes it really hard for female business leaders and entrepreneurs, is that they still carry these mental responsibilities. Oh, and she did say this. was the other reason why, is that you feel that it's a responsibility as a woman because someone walks into your house and they say, oh, you have lovely drapes, or you make such a nice meal, or you make such a nice home. And it's usually a reflection on the woman than it is on the man. And she was talking about how if her husband had a wrinkled shirt, he didn't care, but she cared because it would be a reflection on her and not on him. And so that's part of some of the issues, right?
Absolutely. And when you look at the numbers last year from an investor perspective, women the year before had finally hit 2.6% of the total venture capital pie. Woohoo! Almost hitting 3%. Well, like now we're, cooking with gas here. And then in 2020, it slipped back to 2.1% because women had to focus on, daycare, homeschool, all the rest of that stuff, right, that went with it. Keeping the family together and preventing kids from losing their minds by being trapped inside the house day after day. And so they didn't have the chance to continue to pursue their entrepreneurial efforts, and many of them even had to drop out of the workforce. So, and everybody's different in what they need and what they want. And one thing that I really should add for your audience on this whole topic of over-glamorization, the idea of work and how busy, being busy is a badge, that's bullshit. It really is. Like, if I didn't have to put all those hours in, I wouldn't. It's really hard. And just actually a couple of weeks ago, I made a post about emotional exhaustion. I've been doing 100-hour weeks for almost a year and a half, actually. And they really started to catch up with me. I'm like, man, plus I miss my family. We're not traveling. We're not doing anything. And I said, that's it. I need to start a tradition of sacred Sundays. And I don't mean any sacrilege, related to that, but really trying to protect it. And that's it. Have a day with the family. We had a nice Father's Day on Sunday, did all that, all the nonsense, the cookout and, all the craziness and just fun and hiking and playing and just having a really good time together and maintaining that. And I've only done it for a couple of Sundays, but it's really important. And I feel the mental break. Like, it's just nice to just not have to think about 10,000 things that are plaguing you. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they haunt me Sunday night. I'm up, all night thinking about, what my week's going to be. But at least for the day Sunday, it's all like, woohoo.
Right. You mentioned TED speaker, or were you just saying TED Talks? Are you a TED speaker as well?
No, that's my bucket list, Michael. I want to do my TED Talk. And you know what my TED Talk is? It's the pre-marketing marketing strategy. It's like the pre-meeting, but more effective. Because I did a whole thing to start pre-marketing STEERus before I actually launched it, to build notoriety, build that whole digital footprint. That's my pre-marketing marketing strategy. And I want to go and have my TED Talk and talk about it and how it's been successful.
Well, we share the same bucket list, of course. I was very interested in that because that is on my bucket list too. I hope to be able to do that eventually. As we come to some sort of conclusion here to the show, I want to just stay on the portion that we were just talking about as a female entrepreneur and a female business leader for a second here. I feel that I'm aware in the sense that I try to read up on female entrepreneurs and try to learn more. And I always say that I need more female entrepreneurs in my wheelhouse here so I can learn more and be more aware. But at the end of the day, I am your stereotypical white male, right? And so there's not much I can do to change, but I'm interested in from your perspective and maybe any advice or tips that you have out there for our female entrepreneurs to be able to help them shed those responsibilities. So I see it with my wife. She takes on just a tremendous amount of responsibility at the home, and as aware as I said I am, I'm not able to take that away from her. I'm not able to just get her to say, leave the laundry alone. She's like, I got to do it. So I'm just interested if you have any tips or advice for myself or for our female entrepreneurs out there to be able to maybe change what our society has viewed your responsibilities as.
So a couple of things. In and around anybody, it doesn't matter what their gender is, just be real. Like, be yourself. Like, be supportive. Sometimes you've got to listen more. Sometimes you've got to talk more, right? Figure out what the vibe is and respond to that. Just be yourself. People appreciate authenticity more than they appreciate you being, sycophantic, like, yeah, that was good, yeah, and just that doesn't get anybody going. Like, you need to create these spaces where people can have a conversation and feel supported. And the second thing, tell your wife, just go on strike. So every once in a while, I lose my mind and I go on strike. What's for dinner? I don't know. How come the dishes aren't done? I don't know. And I go on strike, And it's very... It's not passive-aggressive, because I hate passive-aggressive people. That drives me mental.
Right.
Just be up front and be like, yeah, this is BS, and I'm not going to support it. And so they're like, oh, is today that day? I'm like, today's that day. So we're on our own, and we've got to make dinner? Yes. In fact, you have to make dinner for me today, and you have to do the dishes. Can you imagine? Are you going to lose your minds? I'm like, good thing I went grocery shopping for you. Here's the item. Here's the items that you need, whatever, for the suggested entree for today. And then they get it. They're like, oh, you're really tired. Yeah.
That is so I love that. Go on strike. Yes, I'm going to tell her that. I did manage on my own for a while, but I haven't in the last 8 years. So so I will tell her, but I think she'll be asleep when I say it. But I will say go on strike. No, I'm just kidding. I will share that piece of wisdom with her. Thank you so much for that. All right, so I want to just finish up with STEERus, because I think what you're doing there is important work, and I just want to just go back to soft skills, and we'll kind of wrap up here. I want to just understand what soft skills are again, and then again a little bit more about your leadership training, because I myself have a business coach, and I know that I wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for her. I wouldn't be achieving some of the goals that I've achieved so far if it wasn't for her, and I wouldn't be planning the future that I'm planning. First of all, I want to thank Merritt Minnemeyer and Master of One Coaching. She is just tremendous. I have a 2-hour coaching session with her tonight. We're going to be breaking down my assessment that I just did with her. Again, we do it annually, so it's really nice. I'm looking forward to that. But it is just such an impactful thing, and it's so important as a business leader and as an entrepreneur to have coaching. So I would like to have you just share with us what STEERus is doing, unpacking what soft skills are, and how you're changing the world there.
Absolutely. So, yeah, like my favorite topic, right? If it's not talking about me, it's talking about STEERus. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
I really don't like talking about me. It's weird being on this side of the microphone. But anyway, as far as STEERus, so soft skills, so LinkedIn, Deloitte, PwC, Indeed, Bamboo HR, they're increasingly recognizing the importance of soft skills, even over tech skills. And soft skills are things like emotional intelligence, communication, problem solving, professionalism, your time management, all that comes into it, creativity, adaptability, resilience, all of the sort of things that a lot of people take for granted and they have to learn the hard way in the workplace. Well, we recognize at STEERus that students today in Generation Next, they're not learning this in school, and they're not learning it from their parents anymore. We're in a society where kids spend a lot of time in their rooms and on social media. So they're not interacting with parents and parents' friends and learning how to interact with adults. And because that social learning opportunity has been taken away from kids today, they need to have it. And you can't get it through video games and things. You've got to have a different level of interaction. So we're providing that. We offer trainings in all of those different soft skills in a fun way to learn. We've got games, so like pop-up trivia quizzes and all kinds of good stuff like that, as well as, you need to do a deeper dive? Well, then book time with a coach. A coach will take you on a personalized coaching journey and help you deliver on all of the soft skills, that you may not even be aware that you're missing or that you can improve upon. And so you have those opportunities too, or, hey, you just want a little toe dip, you don't want to enroll in the Soft Skills Academy, sign up for a workshop. Focus on one thing. Go sign up for a 1-hour workshop. We make it really affordable so that anybody can access it. And then our work from social entrepreneurial efforts, we're working with different communities where we're making our academy free to them and to their counselors or to their teachers so that they have the opportunity that, I didn't and that many other people didn't have, which is have access to coaching. And coaching's not therapy, right? Therapy's professionals. You've got a chronic mental condition that needs to be treated by professionals, possibly through medication and or counseling. It's not mentoring, where mentors can give you advice because you trust them. It's coaching. Coaching provides guidance, support, and the accountability where you get nudged along to keep doing things. Like you said, you've got your 2-hour check-in from your assessment tonight. Michael, what have you done? What have you not done? Right? That's what a coach does. And where we provide personal plus professional development. So on the personal side, life coaching, health and wellness coaching. And on the professional side, we provide leadership and career development. Those are really important. That's what young people need today. And the businesses who are employing these people, they need to understand, how do they work intergenerationally? How do you deal with the student who shows up with the septum ring and the tattoos up the cheek and across the eyeball? Hey, that's just self-expression. So what? Can the person do the job? How do you interact with them? How do you find common ground so you can build a relationship knowing that they may not have had the access to the social skills or be at the level of experience that you've had in the workplace? How can you share your wisdom on them to bring them up, right? It's the whole ladder theory. You should always have one hand on the rung above you, hanging on and pulling yourself up, but you should have the other hand down below, pulling up the next person up the rung with you, right? That's what we do at STEERus.
Wow, that's great. Yes, and I can't speak more highly about coaching. And the other thing that I would add to what you just said there is challenging. Is a good coach challenges. A good coach is challenge you to constantly stretch, because that's why you're enrolled, right? You're looking for that. You're looking for growth, and the only way you're going to grow is by stretching and challenging and supporting their failures and helping them figure out why they failed and how to move on from it. So I would just add that definitely, right? Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely right. The coach is there to catch you when you fall, because you're going to fall. And every once in a while, you're going to splat really hard. You're going to need somebody to scrape you off the ground with a spatula, put you back into the little ball and go okay, keep going.
Cool.
Right, because it happens.
So I'm going to ask you my final question, and I won't steal yours, although I have used that one in the past. But I've been liking this one a little bit more because it's more on a positive note, and we all know that us great entrepreneurs, right? We're looking at our failures as a positive thing anyway, right? So looking back at your career, looking back at your professional life, that is, what's the one thing that you look back at and it's your proudest moment? It's the moment that maybe changed everything for you, or that really sticks with you today that you look back at and just gives you a big smile?
When I was at Johnson Controls, so this is sort of more recent times, I felt like I was a bit in over my skis, and I had just started, and there was this massive project for $1 billion bid. And, everybody was going about it the way that they did, and, I looked around the room, and there were a lot of middle-aged white people, and I read what the pharmaceutical company was looking for. They were embracing diversity and wanted to do things differently. And I spoke up and said, everybody in the room is white, middle-aged male, and they're looking for diversity. How are we going to be able to represent that with the thinking that's in this room? And the executive vice president said, okay, big mouth, it's yours. You run it. You run this project. I was like, but, take it. And that was incredible, because I got to have 74 people, many of them more senior to me, many peers, many folks who were not as experienced. And we worked together for over 7.5 months in London on a bid, 7 days a week. It was crazy. It was a slog, and I ate the same thing every day because there was only one pub open. I had a veggie curry and a pint of Guinness every day. And I was just craving green things. But the whole point of that is I felt really proud because I was given a chance, but it was also enormous pressure to be able to go out and deliver. But if you really peel back the onion, what happened is I spoke up and represented what was right. I represented the customer. I put the customer first, and you can never go wrong. And if you're in a company who doesn't believe that, go elsewhere, because the company won't be around a long time.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm sure that was a very empowering moment for you. And did you notice any changes after that with yourself, with the company? Did that really change the course of the company?
It did.
Oh, wonderful.
Won the bid.
I mean in terms of
bid.
I meant in terms of the diversity in the boardroom, like you had mentioned today.
Oh, yes, for sure. So what it did is I went through all of the different groups, through facilities, this, that, different organizations, maintenance, and brought different people to the table, brought women, brought people of color, brought non-gender, non-binary folks, and just really had full representation. And I think that's, they told us. I mean, that's why we won the bid.
Right.
We delivered on what they asked for. Greater representation.
That is something to be very proud of, I hope to see more of that, and I believe that we're all moving in the right direction there. Dr. Loralyn, this has been a first for me to have a PhD doctor on my show today. I was so excited when we connected on LinkedIn that you were coming on the show. You are a tremendous personality. I cannot wait to meet you in person. I know I will. And you just shared so much with us on the show today. I know that so many entrepreneurs and business leaders that were listening today are going to take take away so much value from what you shared. So I really, really appreciate that. I would love to give you the opportunity right now to just share any website, contact information, handles that you would like our audience to be able to touch base with you on.
Oh, and just thank you so much for the opportunity, Michael. Like I said, now I'm really disappointed I didn't spend 5 hours in the car together, hashing out. But I was like, I can't do it.
It's all good.
So fantastic. And yes, we will meet in person because I think, I've got to overcome my cave syndrome here that I've developed being, living in my basement for the last 18 months. That said, I would love to see folks take a look at STEERus.io, find our website, enroll in our Soft Skills Academy. Check me out on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. On Twitter, as STEERus, again, _IO. You can find us. STEER, STEER, us. Equity is our North Star. It's all about navigating difficult things through life. And come find us and give us feedback. What are we not doing right? What do you wish you saw more of? That's the thing that can really help, right? These anti-fragile relationships. Say it with transparency. Say it with respect. Bring integrity to the table. You can't go wrong. Your feedback matters. I want to hear it.
Thank you so much. And I just want to also make another note there for you is that you are supporting the overlooked and underserved communities by offering some free programs. So if you feel that you can't financially afford anything, still reach out and see if there's something that Loralyn and her staff can help you with. This has been a great pleasure. Thank you again so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you for listening to The Michael Esposito Show. For show notes, video clips, and more episodes, go to michaelespositoinc.com/podcast.